Hello everyone, this is Baylor from Scooby-Doo on YouTube, and in this video, this is going to be like part 5, and in this video, I'm actually going to show you functions, okay, with PHP, okay, so this is like learning PHP from scratch, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to create functions, how to write functions, what functions do, and things like that, things that just like really make you really excited and stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, you can see I've completely erased my document, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start doing this. So let me put my cursor here. I'm going to create a math function. Okay, so a function structure is like this. You write function, add a space. Okay, so PHP knows this is your function name. Now this is like, I know in one of my videos I said like you don't need to write spaces are not really required. Well, they are required with functions. Okay. Well, here I can declare my function name. Okay, so I'm going to say this function is called do math. Okay, then what we do is we add our parentheses, so let's just do it like that, and then we add curly brackets, and then whatever we write inside of this function is actually run. So what we can do is we can create variables, we can write if statements, we can write switches, we can create arrays, we can do whatever we want inside of this function, and that function will not run automatically. What you do inside of that function will not automatically be done, but you can call it later. So we'll call that function by coming down here and we'll say do math. Okay, so this is how we create a function, and this is how we run that function. So in this function do math, what I'm going to say is echo, and I'm going to say 5 plus 5. Okay, so here we're saying do math, and it's going to do the math for 5 plus 5, and we're running that function down here. Okay, so when I reload this page, you can see we get 10. Now, if I comment this out and I reload, see it doesn't do anything, okay? So functions don't run all by themselves, okay? You actually have to call this function and tell it we need to do this. Okay, so I reload, I get this 5 plus 5, and I can do pretty much whatever I want in this function. But right now, it's kind of limited. I mean, I'd have to come back to this function and I'd have to say, okay, we need 2 plus 5, and we get it now, okay? What I want to be able to do is I want to say do math, and I want to say I want to do math for like, sorry if that's bothering you, 3, and then I want to say I want to do 3 plus 5, okay? Well, what we can do is inside of our do math function, we can say, well, we'll allow you to enter num1 and num2. And then down here, what we can do is we can say we want to do num1 plus num2. Okay, so here you can say, I can now say num1 and num2, and then you can actually do that down here. Okay, so now if I come back over here and reload, you can see we get 8. And if I change this number, you can see it's very versatile, and I can easily do math. But right now I'm limited to doing only addition, and it would be nice to be able to make it where you can do other types of math. So let's do add. So we'll say we have a type of do math to do, okay? We'll make this equal to plus. Now, what we're doing here is, you notice these two are just regular variables. And what we're doing here is we're making it where you have to supply num1 and num2. By default, they don't have a default value, okay? When you have to supply num1 and num2 because they don't have a default value. But type over here is not required, okay? It's just a regular. It's a variable that has value, so if I reload the page, you can see I don't get an error. Now, if I remove this equal and this plus and whatnot, and I come over here and reload, now you can see it says missing argument 3 for the function do math. Okay, so I need to say we want to do plus or addition, and I reload now, and everything's running fine. Okay, so what I want to do is add that math thing. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to make it where I can say I want to do addition, I want to do subtraction, I want to do multiplication, and I want to do division. Okay, but by default, it's going to do addition. What I can do is I'm just going to remove this, and I'm going to create a switch. And I'm going to say I want to switch through my type, and I'm going to have a case for addition, and I'm going to have another case for subtraction. I'm going to have a case for our multiplication, and I'm going to have a case for our division. Let's remove some of these line breaks. Okay, so let's just, here's our switch here. And then we'll have a default. And here we'll just echo out like, you must supply plus minus times and divided by, which doesn't really make sense. You'd really want to be very specific here. Here's where you'd want to be kind of specific and say this is how the function works. But if I reload, you can say I get, well, it's gone now. But if I supply something like hello, what's going to happen is it says you must supply one of these symbols. Okay. And that's actually kind of confusing. I read that was, well, I didn't. Never mind. I'm not even going to do that because it's kind of embarrassing. But obviously, when you create applications and stuff, you want to be specific so people can actually know what you're doing here. You want to be user friendly. Okay, and I'm going to touch on that in a second because I want to make this even more user friendly than this will be. But basically, when we have this math, what we're going to do is we're going to say echo num1 plus num2. When we have subtraction, we'll do say echo num2 or 1 plus num2. When we have our multiplication, we'll say echo num1 times num2. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm afraid that might get kind of boring. Okay, so basically I've created this, and if I come back over here and reload, you can say I get 10. If I say I want to do subtraction here, reload and see that's a problem. Oh, need to write that in quotes. Okay, reload, you say I get, oh, that's really bad. And I'm sure y'all noticed that, and you're kind of laughing right now. If I reload, you can see we get 0 because 5 minus 0, 5 is 0. If we do multiplication, 25. If we do division, we get 1. Okay, that's basic stuff. But what if we want to make this even more user-friendly? Now, I quite frequently, actually, I do this a lot. I make things overly simple to the point that it's complicated. But I do want to, at this point, my video tutorials aren't designed so you actually learn, I teach you stuff, and you actually become, I don't know, I just want you to get the basics so you understand what I'm doing so you can actually implement that on your website, and you can actually build websites, and you actually know how to write PHP, because that's the whole point of these videos. I'm not actually trying to teach you, okay, now, when you are doing this, this is how you're going to handle that, okay? If that makes sense. Hopefully you're following me here. I'm just giving you ideas so you can realize, you could take these into where you're doing this, and you can really be knowing what you're doing, okay? And have a lot of different ways and make it very user-friendly. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make it where they don't have to write these symbols, because symbols are kind of strange, especially if you're coming back weeks later and you're trying to figure out, okay, what are these symbols doing? Normally this is a obscure function that you really wouldn't write, but we have 5 and 5, and I want to make it where I can write plus, or I can write add, or I could even do something. I could even add. You can do multiple of these. You could even do addition, which I just misspelled. But I want to make it where I can write add or a plus symbol. So the way we'll do that, I just recently learned this, so I'm kind of really excited to show it to you. Basically, we have these case. Now, I don't have to say another case. I don't have to say case add. Then we're going to do echo num1 plus num2. Okay, we don't have to do that. What we can do, actually, is where we have our case, we can add another case. So we can say case add. Basically, PHP is going to say case plus, case add. If one of these are here, then we're going to do this. Okay, so both of these, we can just wrap this together, and we're just saying we have a case plus and add. We're going to do the exact same thing. So if I come down here and I reload, and we get 10, if I replace that with add and I reload again, you can see we get 10, and I can go back down to my minus, and we get 0. Okay, now what I'm going to do is for my subtract, I'm going to say case subtract, and then I'm going to add another case. Let's come up to the beginning. We'll say case sub. Okay, so we have some versatile here are different ways of writing this, so we can just kind of be, if you just want to be quick and brief, you can do a symbol, or you can do this. I'm giving some options here for the user. Then we'll have multiply. Now, there's not really a good way to condense multiply. I tried mult, but I kind of thought that was weird, so I'm not going to use it here. We'll have case for, what are we doing? Divide. And another case for divide. Okay? So now if I reload, you can see we have, that's not good. What line is it? 18. Oh, I didn't add my little colon here. Okay, here we get 0 because I did my subtract. I could replace that to sub. I can do subtract. I can do multiply. I can do divide. Okay, so now you can see that we actually have some options here that we can actually do a few different things, okay? It's very versatile. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to continue on to another way you can do functions. So now I think from this video, and you know it's a video, it's on YouTube, you can watch it 100 times, and the only thing that you would do really is learn and give me a bunch of video views, okay, for one person. Okay, so if what I showed you so far is you can write a basic function that says 5 plus 5. You can go all the way to this advanced extreme where you have a bunch of different options that makes it so people can type in two numbers and they can be very specific. They can do a plus sign, they can do add, they can do a bunch of different things and actually get this. Okay? So now I want to go to another way of writing functions. So this is very difficult because this is just a single page and it doesn't really do anything. Okay, well, I've actually been writing a bunch of classes, and you're probably not going to know what this is, but I've been writing a bunch of different scripts and stuff with PHP recently, and I wanted to find a way that it would be easy for myself not to repeat myself multiple times, because you may have heard of this expression. It's called dry, and it says don't repeat yourself, okay? I've been doing a lot of dry, and what I've learned is there's a way that you can prevent yourself from repeating yourself in the same function, okay? So I could create a function here that if I was echoing out hello world, which I don't really a lot, but if I was doing that, I could create a function that's called hello world, and it just echoes out hello world. And then in another function, I could come over here and I could say goodbye world, I guess, I don't know, and I could do hello world. Okay, so this is a great example, but as you can see, I've created a function, and I'm calling that function inside of here, okay? And if I run goodbye world, or goodbye, and I come over here to reload, you can say get hello world, okay? And if I run hello world, you can say I get that here too. Okay, so that's not a great example, but you can see that you can run functions inside of another function. But here's my function that I want to do. I want to create a function called URL or site URL. Okay, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called site path, and I'm going to say this path is equal to, and I'm just going to grab this path in my address bar here. I'm going to put it in here. Okay. In this site URL, what I need to do is I want to echo out my site path. Okay, this is something that you'll want to do, and it took me a long time to figure it out when I was first learning PHP, first learning functions, because I didn't start learning functions till like almost a year after I started learning PHP, and functions are something that I use. Like, I have a file that has hundreds of functions. Seriously, I use functions. I probably overused functions. I don't know. But it's just, I don't like to repeat myself, and you can use functions, and that way I don't have to write the same SQL query over the time, which you probably don't know what that is if you're learning PHP, but you can really prevent yourself from doing too many of the same things over and over again with functions. But back to what I'm talking about here, I have this site path, and I have my path here. I have this function that echoes out my site path, and I'm calling it here. Watch what happens. When I reload my page, bupkis. Okay, here it is. What I need to do is functions can't grab outside variables. And at first you might think, well, why? That stinks. Well, it's actually really good, because if I had a variable out here called my name, which you've probably seen before, if inside of this function, if I was trying to create a temporary name, if I had my name over here again, and I was saying that's equal to Johnny, because or Jimmy, I'm sorry, I use Jimmy a lot, then it would overwrite this one. That would be a problem. So by default, functions can't get outside variables, okay? So what we need to do is tell PHP we need this outside variable. So the way we do that is we use a thing called global, and we type in our variable name, site path in this case. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now, but it's kind of somewhat irrelevant. When you want to add multiple variables, you don't just sit there and duplicate the line. You go to the end of the variable, add a comma, and you create my second variable. Okay? Okay, so that's the way you do multiple variables, but that's just something you need to know. Okay, so when we run this global variable, it's going to get the variable outside of this, and we're going to be able to echo our path. Okay, so I reload, and you see we get demo, and we get this path. Okay, so the reason I'm doing this is I want to be able to make links, and I want to be able to make my URLs. So what we'll do is we're going to add a little thing up here that says path, and that's going to be equal to null. Okay, so null is just like, I think in Ruby on Rails, which is another programming language, is basically that's null, NIL, but it's null in PHP, and basically it's just like not, or it doesn't exist. Okay. So what we can say is if empty. Now you can go to php.net and read about empty. Okay. Now empty is just an awesome function that basically what it's going to do is it's going to say if it's equal to null, if it's equal to 0, it's equal to false, if it's equal to blank, then that's empty. Okay, so empty does a lot of things. It just makes it really fast and easy to work with. But we're going to say if the path is empty. Okay, so kind of empty path. We don't need that one. What we're going to do is just return a site path. Now, what a return does, okay, is it stops the function. Okay, so this function will run by default all the way to the end of the curly brackets. But if there's a return, then it stops. Okay, and like a lot of times what you'll see is somebody will say like, if my path is equal to hello, then just return. Okay, and what that does is it stops the function so it doesn't get too far. So here what we're doing is we're saying what a return does is, okay, first of all, you notice it stops the function. What it also does is you really only use returns in functions. But what it's going to also do is it's going to be like a silent echo. Okay, so normally what happens if I do an echo, it puts something on the page. Well, if you can't say like, if I said echo site path, I couldn't do this. I couldn't say my URL equals this, okay? Because what it would do is it would just echo this out and URL would be equal to nothing. But when I do a return, what it does is it says this function returns this value. So when I run this function, I can say my URL is equal to site URL, okay? So let's just go back over here and we're going to say echo the site URL, and when I reload, so I still get my bigdemo.com /URL tutorial. Okay, so whenever this path is empty, it returns the site path. If I add an else, though, this is saying that my path is not empty. So what I want to do here is I want to return my site path dot path. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking this path and I'm taking my site path and appending this path to it. So now if I add something like this, contact us, which is a page you might have, and I reload, you can see I get contact us. Well, what we could do that would be a little bit easier, well, I don't know about easier, but if right now it's very simple. Right now I'm doing a very simple get the site path, okay? But if I had something that was more complicated that did a lot for if it was empty, then if I had something that said, if I had something that did like site path is equal to something, and then, if I did a lot here and I wasn't just returning my site path, what we could do is, let's get back, okay, if I was doing a lot more here, what I could do instead is return my site URL function and append my path to it, okay? So what this is going to do is it's going to run the site URL function blank, and whenever it's blank, it's going to return just the site path, okay? Then it's going to append the path that they apply here or supply here to the end of it, okay? And I reload, you get the exact same thing, okay? But if I just run this blank, you can see that I don't get anything, okay? It added to it, okay? So that's actually something you can use a lot, and it's very useful to be able to run functions inside of each other. I don't want to get into. I've kind of talked about a lot of different things that were slightly irrelevant to this video, and I don't want to do it too much because it kind of makes my videos a little bit harder to follow. But I've actually done that before, and it's nice to be able to run this function inside of this function here, okay? Or run the function inside of itself, okay? And you can just it doesn't create an infinite loop. Or you could make an infinite loop, but you really won't have to worry about it here. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about in this video, and I had it on my mind, I was just thinking about it, now I forgot it. So I guess I'll end this video. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comment section below this video, and goodbye.